Hello, money-hungry gamers. I'm back with my 5th Dillo video. This pet has really made my channel, hasn't it? Anyways, this method is a different form of armadillo mining that's been more of a background method for a really long time now. Instead of mining in Spiral or Throne, you have a route of gemstones that you mine. This sounds immediately worse, but stay with me here. If you're able to make a good enough route, then you'll ideally have enough large gemstones so that you aren't mining the tiny naturals you're probably all used to every time. Originally, the method started out as just mining amber or amethyst in these routes, and while it would be worse for collection than regular armadillo or ruby, it was better for money because of the bazaar prices. However, the bazaar prices of these two gems started to die, and the methods died with it. However, there are people working on Dillo routes more behind the scenes, and eventually developed some pretty ridiculous route tech, as well as optimizing literally everything to do with routed Dillo. So, now, I'm honored to present to you Routed Dillo, the brainchild of the elite mining community in its full form. With the advent of the Dillo energy nerf, routed Dillo was already a thing, but with the nerf, people were forced to find really efficient ways of routing the veins. This actually boosted the profits of routed Dillo as it made every movement so much more efficient. I like to give credit to some of the pioneers of this era and the founders of modern routed Dillo, really. The first person I'd like to credit for this is X_6X, who is one of the best route developers and optimizers we have and has made a lot of the public routes for this, which a lot of you will be using. Secondly is Ninjun, who is the developer of the Coal Weight mod, which is absolutely essential for this method, as you'll shortly see. He is also one of the most skilled routed Dillo miners, and even has a guide of his own, which I'll link in the description. With that brief history and credits, let's get into how routes actually work. The routes you'll want to be using can be found in the route sharing channel of my Discord. I'd recommend using this Sapphire route made by X_6X. These routes take advantage of lots of large veins being close together, and will usually skip over veins that look like this, as they're just too small. This ensures that you're getting the most amount of gem blocks broken every time you summon and use your armadillo. You'll also be blazing through these veins quite quickly, so the routes need to be really long. Some can be as long as coal routes, which, for comparison's sake, are like 150 veins. So they can take upwards of a whole hour just to set up. So if you're planning on doing this, I'd recommend making sure your schedule is clear. The waypoints for these routes, rather than symbolizing where the veins are, symbolize where you should put your ether warp pads. These ether warp pads are only one block, and they're also where you'll summon your Dillo, but I'll talk about how exactly you need to mine this in a later section. For now, just dig between the veins with Efficient Miner and Mole enabled so that you have a clear line of sight to ether warp from one pad to the next without having to move at all. You can also use mineral armor for this if your Efficient Miner is bad, but then placing cobble will be a real pain. All of this sounds kind of superfluous, but I promise that optimizing route setup is actually worth it. As I said, these things take actual ages to set up. You won't regret it. Okay, so I could not think of a subplug for this video, so I'll just say that I really want Red Name over the summer, and if you help me reach that, it would mean the world to me. Okay, thank you. Back to 100 mil an hour. The next major thing that I'll talk about is the waypoints mod you'll use for this. There is literally no other waypoints mod that you should be using, and this mod is extremely useful for when you start actually mining too. It's called Coal Weight, developed by Ninjun, as I mentioned earlier. I have a video in the other general features of this mod, which I'd highly recommend checking out. It's just absolutely amazing for mining. I'll include a section in the description as to how to get the mod. Anyways, the import you take from the Discord, just copy it, then run /coalweightorderedload, which will load the waypoints from your clipboard. The blue outline symbolizes the pad you just teleported from, the green symbolizes the pad you are on, and the yellow symbolizes the pad you should next teleport to. You can customize how close you have to be to these outlines for them to advance. I'd recommend using either 2 or 3 blocks, as you'll be teleporting directly onto them anyways. The mod will also draw a line to the next waypoint so that you know the general area of where it is, which can help immensely when you're starting this method. Furthermore, when you're setting up the route, you can enable Setup mode. What this does is instead of drawing a line to the next vein, it draws a line where your line of sight should be, so you can mine around it and make sure that it isn't obstructed. I really cannot overstate how useful Coal Weight is for this method. So help me if I see any one of you using skytills for this. One thing to note when setting up these lobbies is that if a structure obstructs any waypoints, try your best to route around it. For waypoints that are no longer usable, run /colWaitOrdered remove and the waypoint number. If you need extra pads to warp around the structure, then you can add them with /colWaitOrdered add, then the waypoint number. These will automatically update the rest of the ordered waypoint index, so you don't have to worry about redoing every single one. If more than 10 or 15 veins are obstructed in a single route, or structures make the ether warps too hard, I'd suggest just abandoning it. It's also better to abandon a route early into setting it up rather than later, as it wastes less time, so I'd be more stringent with this during early route setup. Anyways, you now have your route, and after an hour or so of toiling to set it up, you are ready to mine. Now, this is where it gets actually complicated if it wasn't bad enough. So before you even start to think about mining, let's talk pet rules. Most of you will already be familiar with armadillo pet rules, but this method introduces a new type. You can either stay with the normal ones and have to avoid the Dillo whilst ether warping, lest you accidentally mount it and mess up your rhythm entirely, or you can go with pet rules that alternate between pets rather than resummoning, which makes ether warps much more consistent, but requires an extra fishing rod cast. The regular armadillo pet rules are, first, on fishing rod casts, summon any non-mountable pet, then add any random exception you want. Then, create another fishing rod cast that summons your armadillo, and remove the exception from the first rule. This makes it so that whenever you throw a fishing hook, the armadillo will resummon at your location. The second option just alternates between pets. The first rule is on fishing rod cast, summon whatever non-mountable pet you want, except if that pet is already equipped. Then, repeat that same rule, but for the armadillo. So, for resummon pet rules, you'll throw the rod, mount, mine, crouch to get off, move forwards to get out of the Dillo's hitbox, then ether warp and repeat. This comes with the inconsistency of the fact that you can majorly slip up with mounting the Dillo, which will sometimes have disastrous effects on your ether warp. That said, they are the pet rules used by Ninjun, who is way better than me at this, so it's really a preferential thing. The alternating pet rules are the ones that I and the best routed Dillo miner, Cookie_Clicker, use. For these, you'll throw the rod, mount, mine, throw the rod again, then ether warp and repeat. It's a lot of right-clicking, so it's quite confusing at first, but eventually you get it down. I started using the regular rules, but then switched to these, and once I got the muscle memory down, it made me so much more consistent, especially since you don't have to move to the edge of the block, so they're definitely my recommendation. Okay, so, what do you do after summoning the Dillo? Mount it, right? Wrong! You are stupid. How does it feel? The reason that the blue cheese swap works is because Skyblock items have a roughly half-second to 1 second delay before they actually update stats. Why? I have no idea, but they do. This makes it so that if you mount the Dillo immediately, you'll essentially be mining without drill stats for a lot of the vein. You didn't spend hundreds of millions on a drill just to not use it, I hope. Anyways, as a result of this, you wait a bit before mounting the Dillo. I know a bit is quite arbitrary, but stick with me. It's the colwait mod to the rescue again. Seriously, if you're mining and don't have this mod, what are you doing? Anyways, the colwait mod has a feature that alerts you with a sound if you get a low pristine proc, which basically means that your drill's pristine didn't apply, so you swap too fast. Personally, I have it alert me if I get a 16, 17, 18, or 19 proc, but I have a maxed setup. Find out what your regular pristine proc is, and then find out what a low proc is, and try to input 3 to 4 numbers for a low proc. As for the sound you use, it's more important than you think. Personally, I played psychological games and torture on myself with this sound, so I'd want to quit the game every time I got it. The sound I used is random.anvil_fall, pitched down by 3 and the volume being 5. This is a pretty loud version of the giant sword ability sound, and it sucks. I hated it. If I went 3 veins getting that for every vein, I wanted to just... But it got me used to the muscle memory really quick. That said, it's up to you whether you want to inflict psychological damage on yourself. So, now that you're used to how low procs work and you have whatever auto pet rules you desire, let's talk about how to mine the veins. We do this in actions called swipes. A swipe is a motion in kind of a semicircle that should mine as many blocks as possible, and should end near the next ether warp pad to make that ether warp easier. An example of a swipe is being shown on screen right now. You'll want to aim slightly upwards, a little above 0 degrees, so that you can break as many blocks as possible in a single swipe. If your swipe goes past the Ether Warp pad, as they often will, just keep in mind where it is so you can swipe back and end where the pad is. This will sometimes net you more blocks anyway. One thing to mention about these swipes is that they actually benefit from a high sensitivity, so personally I raised mine from 70 to 100 when doing this method. It'll take a while to get used to, especially when Ether Warping, but you'll get used to it eventually and you won't regret it. These swipes are one of the most important parts of this whole method. If you're able to master them, then you'll see a huge increase in rates. Anyways, the final part of actually mining is Ether Warping. It may not seem super important, but it is. It's why you want to end your swipes nearest to the next pad. If you get in a rhythm of Ether Warping, then that's when you'll really see your rates start to shine. Hello, Editing Implodent here, and I'm here to add on to the Ether Warp section a little bit. A while ago, Dirtyvirus came up with the idea of just using a conduit instead of an aspect of the void because, I don't know, he's poor and didn't have a merger, but it saves you from having to crouch. We all realized this is actually a fair amount better, and he was quite happy about it.
Do it without AOTV.
Huh?
Here's my reasoning. You don't have to shift to right-click with the conduit. You just right-click.
Wait, actually? Wait, that's actually kind of good for mining, no?
Did I just come up with something?
Yeah, because no one else in recorded history has used an AOTP with
Hell yeah.
So yeah, that's the reason Ninjun switched from traditional rules to alternating rules. It doesn't benefit your profits a whole lot, but it makes the method so much more consistent and easy. So, yeah, can't wait to see conduit prices rising. Okay, I think that's it. I'll go over some rates really quick before I end then. When I started, I was making 60 to 65 mil an hour, and I got it up to 70 to 75 pretty quickly. Right now I'm sitting at 80 to 85 to NPC after about 400 mil collections worth of practice. That kinda sucks, but oh well. Ninjun is currently approaching 100 mil an hour, and Cookie_Clicker is approaching 107 to 110 mil an hour. This is all to NPC, by the way, which is absolutely crazy. We still sell to the Bazaar though, because inflation has made Bazaar prices for even bad gems higher than NPC, so realistically we're making even more. Okay, thank you for watching. Enjoy Stupidly Broken Rates, and goodbye.